Oh, hi, you've caught me again working on a fun project. In fact, this is a project that I think that you would like to do at home over the 4th of July. It would be a lot of fun to create a flag with your family. I'm Patty Payne, and I work with the Arts Council in Pike Road. We're here at the Pike Road Arts Center. When we open up again, we're located at 944 Wallahatchie Road in Pike Road. So you need to make plans to come visit us soon as we open up. So what I'm doing here today is I'm making a flag, United States flag, and I'm doing it in 3 pieces. Now when you decide to paint a flag or create a flag, you're not doing an official flag. Only the government creates official United States flags. So what you will be creating is a representation of the United States flag. So you don't have to really worry about exact proportions and getting it totally right. Although if you go on the internet, you can find printouts that will tell you exactly what the proportions are supposed to be. But the basic thing you want to remember is that there's always a field of blue, and we have 50 stars, one to represent each of our states, and we have 13 stripes. Now these stripes represent the original 13 colonies. They were British colonies that broke away from Great Britain during the Revolutionary War and formed our nation. And you always want to start with a red stripe at the top, and you'll end with a red stripe at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and paint some more of this since I didn't get finished. I'm just using red Craftsman acrylic paint here, and that's what I've used for the whole flag. For the field of blue, our official colors for the flag, we do have official colors, and they are white, Old Glory red, and Old Glory blue. And those colors are a little deep. In fact, the Old Glory red is a bit deeper than what I'm painting straight from the bottle here. But it would get a little hard to keep mixing exactly the same dark red, because I could make it a little darker by adding maybe some black paint to it. But because it would be difficult to match that precisely as I go through each one of these stripes, I just decided this red will do, because after all, it's not official. It is a representation of the United States flag. So there's some fun facts to learn about the flag. The 13 colonies would make a great Jeopardy game at home. And, you could figure out, who they are. But I'll tell you that they are New Hampshire, Massachusetts, New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Now when I decided to do this flag, I like the fact that it's in 3 segments. The reason I like it is because it's going to make it easy to store. When it's all said and done, I can just stack them up and put it in a closet, easily to store. But what if you want to do one that you want to hang on a wall? You could do this out of something more substantial. You could actually do it out of canvas. Regular painter's canvas, get the 20 by 30 or whatever size you want, and paint it on the canvas. Now, I don't mean the flat boards, I mean the wrapped canvas. But you can get those relatively inexpensively at Michael's or one of the hobby stores. And then the other thing you could do is use a thin plywood. But if you use a plywood, you probably want to paint white quills, over the entire piece of plywood before you ever begin, maybe a couple coats, and that will keep the wood from bleeding through your white paint once it's said and done. But if you want the paint, the wood to bleed through, it's kind of a cool look. So it's all up to you how you do this. So what I did to try to keep myself give myself some guidance while I was painting is I took a charcoal pencil, and these are nice because the pencil sort of disappears when you paint over it. But if you just have a plain pencil, make, some straight line, use a straight edge. I have one here for quilting, but any kind of straight edge will do. And depending on the size of your flag, you might want to figure out beforehand how wide each of your stripes are going to be. I made myself a little pattern so that when I went through, I could measure each one. Now it's smart to start with this one. Now this is adjacent to the field of blue at the bottom, and you notice you have 7 stripes that are adjacent to the field of blue. You have 6 stripes that are below the field. But I started with this one because if I end up a little off, and it's really hard to measure precisely depending on what you've got, you might be a little skinnier at the top and a little skinnier at the bottom. But if you go from the center up and down, at least these are going to be pretty much the same size. So the red, I told you that the official color is Old Glory Red. And you might wonder why the colors of the flag were selected as red, white, and blue. Well, there's a lot of theory about it. One is that the flag that the colonists were used to flying, the British flag, was red, white, and blue. So since they were already accustomed to those colors, those are the colors they selected. Well, at some time, once the flag was officially adopted after the end of the Revolutionary War, they decided that the red stands for valor, the white for purity, and the blue for justice. So that's why we have our red, white, and blue colors. So I'm looking at the stripe that I just finished, and I think, oh look, I made a mistake, and I want to fix it. Well, you notice that the background that I chose is foam board. It's very lightweight, and it's already white. So I figured that was pretty cool because all I had to do was really worry about red paint and blue paint. But I have some white paint, and what I can do with my brush, if I've made a mistake and gotten the paint into the white field here, is just paint over it very carefully. It doesn't have to be perfect. But if you have a little mistake that it really stands out like that one did, go ahead and paint over it and you'll never notice it. Now if you're doing this to hang on your wall in your house, like if you're doing it on wood, you obviously want to be a lot more exact and probably use different paints than the Craft Smart acrylic paint. You probably use some indoor house paint or something that would be good for painting on a more solid surface. And then you might want to use painter's tape to paint out your lines and make sure that you get everything straight. But this is just a fun project for the family to do during the 4th of July holidays. Okay, now I'm going to paint this last row. I also want stars in my blue field, and our flag has 50 stars that represent each of our United States, and the last 2 stars that were added were Alaska and finally Hawaii in 1959. And so our flag actually changed. At the very beginning, the first flag that supposedly Betsy Ross created had a circle of 13 stars going around, and as time went on and states were added, they had to add stars, and so now here we are with 50 separate stars. And the stars are in a field. If you look at the way they are, there'll be 5 stars, then 4 stars, 5 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, 4 stars. So it might be a good idea if you're doing this to draw out a little grid to keep it fairly accurate. Now what I did, just for fun, is I used a hole punch for stars, and I punched out, goes this way, I punched out 50 stars, and I used doilies because I like the way the holes were. And what I've done is I've just taken this glue stick, and you just put it on there. And then you want to make sure your star tip is always facing up. So you put that on. It doesn't have to be precise. And one more. All right. So that completes our flag, and I'm anxious to see how it might look displayed. So what I did while I was painting it, this is foam board, 20 by 30 inch foam board that I use, so it's very lightweight. And what I did before I started is I held it together with painter's tape so that it wouldn't slip while I was doing the painting. Alright, so I have these displayed on an easel right now. If I were going to display them though, I'd want them a little bit closer. I can't get these easels any closer. I'd want them to be more like this, hanging, you know, close to each other. And one thing you can do, especially with this foam board, is use poster tack on the back that would, you know, you stick it on and it'll stick to your walls. And after the holidays are over and you're taking down the red, white, and blue and putting back your Monet, then you can just have no damage to your walls. And speaking of ribbon, let's say you want to make this, but you don't want to use paint. You could actually use fabric and glue fabric onto a board, a square of blue, and use a glue that would hold it, like Fabri-Tac or some other glue. You can get red ribbons to glue across to be your red stripes, and then use anything you want for stars. Anyhow, I hope you have some fun this 4th of July, and if you want, have a great family project, maybe you'll make a flag.